How have you been handling the whole COVID stuff lately?
It's not been too bad. I mean, obviously, it feels weird not to play concerts as much as we used to. We normally do about, I don't know, 120 to 150 concerts a year.
Mm.
And let's just say we haven't been doing that many lately.
Yeah, of course. It must be a massive adjustment for you guys to be going from many shows to very little, I guess.
Yeah, it's a bit weird, but at least making this album has kept us busy in a sense, both from the songwriting and recording and production and stuff like that. So
I had a chance to listen to the album, and obviously it's a signature Sabaton. All the favorite elements that we love about what you guys do is all in there. But what I've sort of realized is that it's still on the same concept of the last album, World War One. It feels like it's a continuation of that. What was the idea going into this album? Did you want to continue that, or what was the plan for there?
I don't think this album would have actually come out at all, or at least not until maybe 2 years from now, if it wasn't for the pandemic or something like that. We were shipped home from touring in Russia in March of 2020, and at that point we didn't really know what to do with ourselves. So we started to, well, first of all, take care of all of these things we all have, like, I'll do that later when I have time,
Yeah.
All of a sudden we had time. So we did that, and that didn't take that long. So we decided to just start writing music. And we had sort of ideas for songs, or topics or stories. We felt like on the Great War, we really wanted to do the story of Harlem Hellfighters. We really wanted to do the Christmas Truce. But we didn't have the right music. So the start was sort of to continue along those lines, maybe with 2 separate songs. But then as the whole pandemic dragged out, we decided, we can make another album. And we had a lot of ideas from friends and fans, everything from emails to books, with stories that were, even though we did quite a lot of research, I'd say, on World War One for the Great War album, there were still, a huge amount of stories that, well, we didn't know about, basically, that were like, oh shit, how did we not know about this?
Yeah.
And that in combination with, having the tour cut off on the Great War. I mean, we did parts of the world, but we never went to Australia, Japan, South America on that tour. So if we would have done something totally different, like Napoleonic era stuff, well, maybe the World War One songs that we never got to play in a lot of countries would feel irrelevant, or so we figured, well, if we have a chance now to sort of tell the stories we felt like we wanted to tell, but we didn't have the right music, we also had the chance to catch up, which never happens, to catch up on those stories that we find out after the fact when we made the album.
Yeah.
And then also it'll make total sense now if we come to, well, Japan or Australia, and we did play songs also from the Great War album together with The War to End All Wars. So, I figured, why not?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, obviously, it's an interesting time in human history, Great World War between, if I remember correctly, 1914 to 1918, if I know my history right. A very interesting time. But what was that about that particular war that sort of fascinated you? Do you think there was something particular about that was different to some of the other wars?
Well, what I find most interesting about it is we're traveling from, I was making a parallel before about Napoleonic era, but let's say, the beginning of the conflict, there were certain units who were still, cavalry in the old sense, not modern sense as in tanks, but cavalry with horses, sabers. We see the birth of modern warfare here. I mean, the beginning of the conflict, towards the end of the conflict, the advancements made, we have aeroplanes being used for the first time in conflict. We have submarines, dreadnought proper battleships. We've got gas being used for the first time, tanks, the development of new tactics, the shock troops or stormtroopers, and the use of artillery on a larger scale. It's the birth of modern warfare, going almost from old school Napoleonic era into the, well, industrialized death machine it can be, At least the hint. I guess we don't get all the way over there, but towards the end of the conflict, the advancements are huge.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's a huge factor in the war from then to what we have now. Obviously, and technology's obviously had a huge part in that. But obviously at that time, technology, the things that had to do to kind of overcome some of the challenges that they had at the time, and to have these modern sort of tools and stuff and come into play. I mean, that was obviously a game changer for just battle in general, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what people are thinking of when they, in general, when they think about World War One, is the static warfare of the trenches, and that is, of course, true to a huge extent, you
Mm.
know. But if it would have continued for a while longer, I don't know how much longer they could have, kept that going, because we do not see that at all to the same extent in World War II, for example.
Yeah. Now the versions that I heard earlier today was just the standard original version of the album, but from what I gather, you've got a second version, a history edition of the album. Tell me a little bit about what that version has that the other one doesn't.
I'd recommend anyone listening to the album the first couple of times to do it with the history edition,
Okay.
because you'll have a storyteller in between the songs to sort of set the scene for you. I mean, unless you're really into history, you're not gonna be, I mean, depending on where you're based, of course. I mean, if you are from the Balkans, you might know it, but let's say, I guess most people listening to the album won't know about the Battle of Doiran and what happened on the Balkan front during those times.
Yeah.
So you will get that information. It makes it easier for you to understand the lyrics and understand the song. And it's not, a huge 30-minute history lesson. It's a couple of seconds up to a minute maximum
Yeah.
of information, but it sets the scene in a nice way. And then to sort of remind you where we are, what we're doing, what's going on here in this song or this story, how is it unfolding, and then into the music, basically. But I mean, to be fair, if you've heard the album 15 times and you're barbecuing with friends, yeah, get the regular version.
Of course, but it's good to have that kind of insight into the songs and the stories that happened around that sort of time and period. And obviously, it's a great idea, and obviously, hopefully, everyone will get out both versions. The other thing I wanted to ask you about as well was a couple of years ago now, you had the 20th anniversary of Sabaton, so congratulations on that. That's obviously a huge achievement, to 20 years, especially in this day and age with the music industry and stuff like that. How do you guys feel about, 20 years later, you're still doing what you do?
I'm pretty happy about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't still have been doing it, I guess. No, it is something, all of these things, they come and go, and you have these moments where you sit down and you think about them, but they're only short moments in time. When we passed, oh, we've been doing this for 20 years. Oh, that's half my life. And that's something sometimes that pop into your head, and you're going to spend a moment to think about. But we're pretty busy people, and we're always, on to the next thing, which means we don't spend much time on those things, thinking about those things, for good and bad. I mean, in many cases, that also means not enjoying the moment sometimes, because you're always mentally on the next thing. So well, sometimes it's good. I don't have time to think about the fact that I'm getting old. Sometimes it's bad, because I sometimes don't appreciate really what we've done, or can enjoy it sometimes, because I feel like I'm always mentally on the next. I start planning the next album, even before this one was readily mixed almost.
Yeah. But obviously during the sort of COVID situation and having a bit of downtime, did you have any thoughts about, some of the highlights over the career, and maybe some of the things that you want to achieve that you haven't done so far?
Yeah, in a sense, this made us realize how much you miss playing live concerts in front of crowds. I mean, I've got nothing against streaming, and I'd rather do a streaming show without a crowd than don't play music at all.
Yeah.
But this at least made me realize, and I guess this goes for everyone in the band, what a huge difference it is. Seeing people's faces when you announce a track, or when you play their favorite track, whatever it might be, and the atmosphere that comes with a live crowd. And so, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the streaming shows. Not that I have anything against the artists doing them or anything like that. I just don't enjoy being on stage without a crowd with a microphone. But we've done a few things where sort of we've done a real live show in front of a crowd, and that's being streamed. And that, I think, is, you know, when I've seen that, it's both for me as a singer, it's still a lot of fun because there's still a crowd there, and there's the extra element. You have a camera where, you know, that's going to the special camera going to the people who are watching the stream. And I think it's also more fun for the people watching the stream than to have a sort of, just a stage and a band.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that I've probably never seen you guys live, or I've never had a chance to, you know. And I've been lucky enough to see you guys. Actually, the last time you came to Australia was Download Festival in 2018 or 2019, I think it was. And there's nothing like, you know, seeing that atmosphere, the crowd and all that kind of stuff. And that must be an exhilarating feeling. And to have that sort of taken away is really probably frustrating. And sort of, you're right. It's not the same thing as sort of, playing in front of an empty crowd kind of thing.
No, it's, you get sort of, I mean, it's a huge part of what we do and who we are, in a sense, because let's face it, we've done it thousands of times, and we're used to doing it over 100 times a year. And now we get nothing of that. Of course, keeping busy with videos and writing music helps, stuff like that. But well, to be fair though, I really do see a streamed live show with a crowd. I really see a use for that, because there's also the fact that there are places where we haven't played. I mean, if you're in Indonesia and you like Sabaton, it's great if you could catch a stream of a real live show, because unfortunately we haven't made it there yet. We will one day, I hope. There might be people also who aren't able to go to shows, anything from a handicap to social anxiety, to be able to experience it, you know. So from that point of view, I really like the streams, but streaming in a studio without a crowd, not for me.
What about sort of, obviously, when touring comes back, is there any particular places in the world that you haven't been to yet that you would love to go to?
At this moment, as long as there's a show, we're going, you know. Beggars can't be choosers. No, but what we've said is, within reason, of course, and whenever possible, we're gonna try and prioritize to the extent that it's possible. I mean, I can't make any promises at all here, because, you know, every government has a different policy on quarantine and travels and stuff. But at least our intention is to sort of prioritize places that we didn't go to on the Great War Tour that we would normally have toured, which would be Australia, Japan, South America, and a bunch of other places. And I mean, also cities in Europe or countries in Europe that we didn't visit. However, with timing and setting everything up and which governments are going to open up when,
it's a tough
one. Basically out of our hands anyway.
Yeah, it's very true. Do you have any dates locked in for 2022 then at all, or?
Yeah, we're starting in Sweden on the 7th of April, I think it is. And we go on until mid-May. So we got 30 shows in Sweden, which is, they announced today that they're gonna sort of skip pretty much all restrictions. Now, just like Denmark did a week ago. So we'll be able to tour as usual. And the good thing about that is we're only dealing with one government and one set of restrictions, or lack of restrictions. Setting up a European tour is a bit of a mess, because a lot of countries in a small place, and you tour and you go to 25 concerts will take you through 18 to 20 countries, you know.
Wow, that's crazy. And it's so different from what we used to hear in Australia, where it's just one country, one sort of mass land, and that's it. We never have to deal with those kind of borders and things like that you guys deal with. But very interesting times indeed. But look, congratulations on the new album. And look, we're really hoping that you can get back to Australia, because as I said, we really enjoyed you guys when you came down here last time. So,
well, I hope we can make it down there really soon. I really enjoy it down there. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll be able to do it before this year is over. We're looking into it at least. I can't make any promises, but we are looking at plans of coming before this year is over.
Awesome. Well, hopefully, fingers crossed that it all happens. And look, have fun on the road. Hopefully, it all works out for you. And congratulations again, once again, on the new album.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.